Hey everyone, Mel here. So I always see a lot of questions on Facebook about how do I use Design Center and embroider around a fabric shape, an applique that I have in my hoop. So something like this. Okay, so you've got your fabric shapes and they're already ironed down. This would be your quilt block. And you want to use your machine to stitch around the outside of your shapes. Well, I'm going to show you how to do that. So let's go into my Design Center. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to scan the hoop. Okay, so have it all ready to go. Have it in the hoop all prepared. And go ahead and put it in your machine. Let's go to scan. Scan is right here with the leaf. Now, to do this, you need to use image scan, okay? There are 3 different ways to scan. Image scan. What that's going to do is it's just going to scan a picture of what's in your hoop so that you can see it on the screen and draw over it. This is not a good way to do it, and this is not a good way to do it. Image scan. So let's hit that. Now, I'm just going to point out that we are just scanning. This would be for getting your picture from, say you had it saved on your machine or on your USB or on a card or wirelessly from software, okay? So we're just going to scan. So let's hit scan. Beautiful. And it's recognizing, depending on how big your hoop is. It might take a little bit longer than mine is taking. I have this in the 5x7. Alright, so there it is. Now, is it very light and we can't see it? Yep. So what do? Look up here. See how light this one is and how dark this one is? Look where the little arrow is. Let's make it darker. There, there. I'm going to put it right there because I can see that pretty good, okay? As you start learning how to scan and draw and do all of that stuff, you'll find exactly how to set those settings so that it works perfectly for what you are doing. Sometimes you need it lighter, sometimes you need it darker. Now, we also need this bigger, okay? Because this is going to be kind of hard to draw because it's so tiny. So let's make it bigger. Can you put it on 200? Sure. If you can draw all around that perfectly, then great. For this, we're going to put it up to 400. And we're just going to use the pan tool and move it around as we go, okay? And if you have never drawn on the screen before, practice, 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 okay? It's not easy to draw at a weird angle on the screen. You can do it. It'll take some practice, but you can do it. All right. So let's move this. Let's do this part right. Let's see if we can do this right here. Okay. Now there's a couple of different ways, or 3 different ways, I suppose, for this particular machine, the Luminaire, to draw on the screen. So you can use your finger to draw on the screen. You can use your stylus to draw on the screen, or you can use a different stylus. This is an Evach stylus. You have to turn it on in order for it to work. It gets charged. It's pretty cool. I like it. I like this one a lot, but I do also use this. And let's look at this and let's talk about why. Now, because I'm doing this for the camera, and I can't stick my head right up close to this and still get a video for you guys, I'm probably not going to do this the most perfect, all right? But you can. And I will eventually get it perfect when I can stick my face right up to the screen. Right now I can't. All right, so there are different ways, different buttons that we can use to draw, and I want you to look at it real quick. This one, this one, this one. We're going to use this one, okay? This is going to allow us to freehand a line around our design, okay? I'm gonna leave it on black. All right, so for fun, let's use our finger first. Selected, see how it's a different color? Since I can't see what I'm doing, what you're gonna do is draw around it. Now this would be why you can't use your finger, because you can't see what you're doing, right? This tends to have that same problem because it's got a big, you know, big fat end on it. Let's try it. Because I'm so far away, I'm trying to get right on that edge. Actually, not too bad. The more you draw, the better you will get at it. Okay. That actually looked really good. I'm surprised I did that well from so far away. All right. So, a lot of people say, well, I want a skinnier one. Let me just show you something. This worked really well once you figure out how to use it. And the faster you go, the better off you are. All right, let's get back out of that. I erased it. Let's try this, okay? You would think that you could do a better job with this because it's got a skinny tip. Well, the problem with this is it has a skinny tip and it tends to wiggle all over the place. It's harder to draw with, and that is a fact. Look at that. I did much better with this than I did with this. Now, you need both of them, to me, because this works really well for filling in little areas and doing fine work that this in no way is going to do. Okay? All right. Now, here's something else I want to show you. This right here tells us what the stitch is going to look like on our outline. Okay? Right now, this is a satin stitch. If we wanted to change it, we would go into our properties. These are the different stitches that you could use. Okay? Let's leave this one on satin stitch. Okay? We'll do another one in a different stitch. So let's draw around this, and I'm going to make it 200%. I'm going to move this a little bit. Okay. Put it back on draw. Use this, and let's draw the outline. And I am probably not going to get this perfect once again because I'm just too far away. All right. I can see that I went out there and there's a mess right there. Well, how do you fix that? All right, well, you're going to go up here, put it in there. Use your hand, 1600%. Use your hand. Oh yeah, look at that. That looks awful, Melanie. So you want to fix it, right? Erase. Now, I'm going to tell you something right now. You're moving the size. If you're used to it being a certain size when you're doing something else, the bigger you make your screen, the bigger your eraser size gets. So you might think that you were using it perfectly on the screen before, but when you made it bigger, the whole thing got bigger and you erased too much. Okay, so let's put it on 11. Let's see what it looks like. Say okay, erase. Let's fix this. Yeah, see how big the thing is there? All right. Draw it back in, okay? Go back to draw. Let's use this just for fun. You want to make sure that your lines get connected or it will stitch weird. Is it working? No. All right, oh, there we go. See, look at that. And you want to get your line right on the edge of that. Now, that being said, when you, let's erase this while I'm talking. Let's make this smaller. Say okay. Let's erase this little bit right here. Whoop. See, I erased my line. Back up, make it smaller. See, there's a method here. So, okay, let's go even smaller. Don't touch anything at the bottom. If you put your hand on the screen, it will draw or erase right where your hand was. All right. Oh, there's a dot right there. Goodbye. All right. So what I was going to say about this line being right on the edge, this line would be the center of your satin stitching, okay? If you wanted the satin stitching, you wanted to make sure that it's going to cover, then you need to draw inside that line, okay? Because you remember, that is your center. Because then what happens is, if you got this a little too far over here, your satin stitches are going to go over here and they may not cover that edge of fabric, okay? So you're going to need to draw just inside. So I'm not going to mess with that for this video because, like I said, I need to get up right up there and look a lot closer to make a perfect line, and I'm just not going to do it. All right, so let's get back out of this. Let's make it smaller. And I think I'd like it a little smaller yet. Use my hand. That's called a pan tool. All right. So right now you can't really see where I drew. So let's make, see, you can make it disappear. And then you can see what you drew. And you do need to do that so that you can make sure you don't have any gaps, or that you can make sure that, you know, your line isn't, you know, really wonky, or you don't have a bunch of little weird little things in there, because it will stitch that, okay? It's going to stitch along this line. And if you had a couple little extra pixels and stuff in there, it's going to go, it's going to stitch those pixels. Okay? All right, let's bring this back just a tad. Yes, I have learned I can't do that at an angle either. All right. This one right here, this heart, is going to get satin stitched around because that's what is chosen. I don't want to satin stitch around this heart. I want to do a blanket stitch around this heart. So, to save me from having to change it later, I'm going to go ahead and change it now. This one will stay the same. This one will stay a satin stitch because that's how you drew it. Let's change this one. Yes. Let's change it to the blanket stitch. So let's go ahead and draw this in the satin stitch. It's just going to show up as a line. It's not going to be anything. Actually, you know what I'm going to do? Because this one is yellow and I can't see it very well, I am going to draw around it with my face up there, and you'll see it after I draw around it. All right, I drew around it better than I did before. All right, you got this line and this line. Now how do we know, looking at this, that it's going to stitch out like that and like a satin stitch? Well, let's hit next and see. Uh-huh. Okay, let's make it bigger so we can check it out. All right. Kind of wiggly. It's all good. It's okay. What I want to point out is, on both of these shapes, look at the stitching. You might look at the screen and say, that looks great. I think that's perfect. It's a lot smaller than you think it is. As a matter of fact, let's choose the other one. Look here. It's on the satin stitch. How wide is our satin stitch? Right here. Okay, this is the width of the satin stitch, 0.080. That's pretty little, okay? It's like, oh gosh, 1/16 of an inch wide. It's or an eighth maybe a little less than an eighth. It's it would not cover well if you tried to use that. So that's the default, and that's okay. Let's make it wider. Let's try that. Hit OK. There. Now you might think on the screen, oh, that's way too wide. It's really not. It's really not wide at all. This is why you need to practice before you get your beautiful quilt block that you work so hard on and just start throwing embroidery on it, okay? Because 9 times out of 10, it is not going to be what you think it is, right? So practice. See what the different, what does that look like? Stitch it out. See what it looks like, okay? This would be your density. If this wasn't dense enough, and you could see through the stitching, you can make it denser, okay? So let's choose the other one because I don't, oh, there we go. Oh, did you see what happened? Now it really chose the whole thing. Pays to play and hit buttons, doesn't it? Okay, so now this one is selected, and you can see here's the stitch that it's going to be. This is also pretty small, so you might want to make it bigger. So this makes it bigger this way. See how the stitches are like this? They'd be taller, they'll be wider. And this changes the space in between the stitching, in between those little blanket stitches. I like this. I would like this to be a little bit bigger. There we go. Stitch width. Let's put it at 200. Say okay. Okay. So that is what it's going to look like. And let's make it darker. It should stitch. See, there is our red. And I want you to look at the satin stitching all around it. This one looks pretty good. This one isn't quite. Something else I would like to point out. Say this was pretty easy. Say you had like a whole teddy bear, a whole scene here, and you wanted to stitch all over it. I do not recommend doing all of it at once. Do a few of the shapes, stitch it, do a few more shapes, stitch it. Putting a whole bunch of stitching all at once could skew it with pull compensation, okay? All that stitching pulls everything in. And if you do it all at once, you may find that your stuff doesn't line up anywhere else, right? So let's hit set. All right. Now here's where you could change it. You can edit it if you want to. I'm not going to edit a thing. Let's go to embroidery. All right. I'm going to go ahead and stitch this out for you guys. It's not the most fabulous, but it does show how things work. The best thing that you guys can do is practice, because you will find that it doesn't always stitch out the way you think it's going to stitch out. And if you practice and learn things about the machine and about how My Design Center works, you'll be able to catch those things and fix it before you get to the point where you have to do it 10 times. Okay? I'm going to stitch it out. Okay, all stitched out. All right, so let's talk about this stitch out, okay? Remember, my lines were not perfect when I drew around my shape, okay? If they're not exactly where they should be, it will not stitch out where you want it. All right, so let's look up here. Look at that. That's like perfect. Oh, line was crooked. Wherever your line is, that's where your stitching goes. Pretty good. There's a bump there. If I were doing this on something that wasn't just to show you guys, I would have made sure that my lines were perfectly on the edge of that fabric. Okay. Now look at this one. Missed it right there. It went too far out. This doesn't look so bad. This isn't so bad. But look, there must have been a dip right there. So you see what I mean? How you draw is how your stitching is going to be. Okay? It's practice, learn how to draw on the screen at that weird angle. Do erase, put it in. If you have any weird little, say you drew a line, you drew another line, to keep going because you had to stop and they overlapped right there, it's going to stitch a weird bump right there because you got double lines. Okay? All right. That is how you do that. Now let's talk real quick about this. I'm sure everyone's going to ask me, where did you get that? What's it called? This is called an Evach, and the charge lasts a really long time on it. It shuts off by itself, so it's pretty cool. Can you use the other end? Yes, you can, okay? I like it. I like both of them, okay? This works good for some things. This works good for other things, and together they both work great. Okay, I'll put the link to find this and get it on Amazon on my website under Mel's favorite tools, or Mel's toolbox. That's what it is. So look for that. I'll also put the link for this in the comments under the video in YouTube. Okay. All right. I have one more thing that I am going to suggest that you do if you're going to get into using Design Center. Let's get out of this. Delete. Say okay. Let's go back to Design Center. We have nothing right now. Okay. So I would draw some lines, and let's go into properties here. And let's just make some lines, okay? Let's do that. So let's use this, and let's say, and remember this is the size of your biggest hoop, okay? Let's draw a line. That didn't work so good, did it? And a line, and a line. And just make a whole bunch of lines, okay? Now, satin stitch. They're going to all be satin stitch, but you can take this line right here and change it. So you could go to properties, sometimes it doesn't work from over here, and go to next. That's what I'm trying to say. Go to next. All right, now change each one of these lines, okay? This one's selected, see the red box around it? It's on 80, okay? Select the next one and change it to 120, okay? Say okay. It's changing. See how it's bigger? Then select the next one and change it to 180. See how they're smaller, bigger, bigger? Do that to all of them. Make them a different size. Stitch. Make sure, here's what I would do. Take your camera and take a picture of each one, or write down, this is 1, 2, 3, 4, and write down what the width was on that. Then stitch it out. And then keep that as a reference and write, this one is 80, this one was 120, this one was 180. That way you know what a 180 actually stitches out like, okay? It's kind of a cheat sheet. All right? Okay, I hope you all learned how to embroider over an applique in my Design Center, and have a great day.